General Ross and his team of Hulks are getting ready to take over Latveria. Over Steve Rogers' dead body. Kinda. So with that said, we're back for Doom's Shadow Part 6. So if you're enjoying these videos, be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications. Alright, so coming back, this picks up right where we left off, with General Ross finding the young and innocent clone of Victor Von Doom. And I really just say young and innocent because this clone of Doom doesn't have his memories. But General Ross doesn't know much of that and he really doesn't care. He just sees this as another way of Doom returning after one world under Doom. So in his eyes, he's willing to choke the life out of this new Doom for the greater good, just to get him out of the way. So Ross can determine the future of Latveria. But alongside of this, with all the destruction and chaos that came along with General Ross arriving in Latveria with his team of Hulks, there's a brief moment here where we head over to Charles Castlemore in Red Widow, where he had been searching for her in all this chaos and he finally finds her. And now when he gets here, he sees Trevor's body and he asks Red Widow what happened. And she tells him the truth. She's like, I did it. It was me. And she just goes on like, this is what I do. Men in suits tell me to kill, and I kill. And from one mercenary to another, she just tells Charles like she believes that's all she's good for. But like we've seen from the time this new S.H.I.E.L.D. team of mercenaries made their way to Latveria. From that time, Charles had been trying to get at Red Widow. So he just tells her here that he can't do it anymore. And in this moment where the world's on fire and it's raining down monsters, this is the perfect chance for the two of them to just disappear, and make it seem like they died in all the chaos. And Widow makes up all kind of excuses why she can't, because she's like, Charles, you don't know me, and I'm hideous under this mask. And Charles just pulls her in. He's like, so am I. So let's be hideous together. And that's where the two of them run off to start a new life. And I'm not even mad at this stage exit, if you will, because there's plenty of build-up leading into it. But all I gotta say is wherever this ends up for them, Charles better watch his back, because she really can't be trusted. But back over with Ross, who could have done by now what he came here to do, if you know what I mean. Since he believes that this Doom is the same Doom that locked him away for months and tortured him, he wants to make this last for a bit. So he tells the kid, run Doom. I want you to feel fear. But then when Steve shows up, starting this out with a shield throw upside Ross's head, he tries to tell the general here that this kid isn't Doom. And really in so many ways, it truly isn't. But General Ross doesn't see it that way. So he's just like, how many times has Doom returned? On your watch. Just before giving Steve the hardest punch he's ever blocked, only to then smack him over onto the side of a van. But he goes on to tell Steve, you and your useless Avengers, I say no more waiting around for evil to rise up when I can just strangle it in his crib. So right there is pretty much like, yeah, so the general really believes there's nothing wrong with this. And now with Steve barely able to get up, he's thinking to himself like, man, I gotta get over to that kid. I can't let Ross get him. But at this time with Ross over by the kid, young Vic just starts begging for his life. He's just like, I'm not him. They want me to be, but I'm not. And now Ross, he's just like, I'm no monster boy. I'll make it quick. And right there's like, oh, gee, thanks. You're a gentleman and a scholar. But then Ross stops when the huge shadow comes up behind him, followed by a bunch of falling feathers, which is a clear sign that Sam Wilson's here, and he's come to help. And now before this, Sam Wilson would have came with Steve to help. But like we saw back in Captain America issue 6, when Tony bailed Steve out of jail, Sam and Tony told Steve, because of the Superhuman Borders Act, no one with either superpowers or crazy high-tech gadgets were allowed to head into Latveria on behalf of another country. And I remember at the time, I was like, there's a number of reasons why Sam would fall into those categories, but you guys were like, no, specifically because he talks to birds. He's an OP bird talker, which is also what Tony said at the time, but I thought Tony was bringing it up as a bit of sarcasm, because I'm thinking Sam's tech was more of the issue. But no, you guys were right. But in spite of Sam not being allowed to go on this mission, it's here where he shows up just in time, with a ton of crows, as a way to distract Ross for just a moment as he drops in to help. And now when Sam gets here, Steve, he starts talking like this is it for him. And I mean, it does look that way because he's all bloody and banged up. But when Sam tries to get Steve out of here, Steve's like, no, there's a boy. Get him to safety, as far away as possible, before Ross gets to him. Then he's like, and tell Sharon that I love her, and I didn't mean to. And Sam's like, you can tell her yourself. Which way the kid go? So Steve tells him southeast. He's a clone Sam of Victor Von Doom. So now Sam knows just enough, because there's really not enough time for Steve to sit here and just explain everything to him, because right now General Ross is going after this kid like a Hulk possessed. And fortunately, Sam's able to swoop in and grab young Victor right before the general can get his hands on him. And now obviously the kid's struggling and terrified, which is making it difficult for Sam to fly with him. So Sam's just like, go limp, kid. And he gets him out of there. But as it stands with Steve, he's still got to deal with the general and his team of Hulks. In addition to the mysterious machine young Victor had in his bag, the bag that he dropped while being chased by the general. So Steve knows that there's a lot going on here that he's still got to deal with. And on top of that, it's going to be a while before any help comes to back him up. And that's where we see him say here, I put the call out. Avengers, assemble. But it already feels too late. People are dead. The city's being destroyed by monsters. And I'm just a man. I strain to come up with a plan. Any plan. To stop this. It's what I do. But nothing comes. So all I can do is keep fighting. Keep trying to save people. And you gotta respect how Cap is acknowledging here, basically, that the idea of going up against a team of Hulks is not the move. And I ain't mad at that. But he goes on here saying, all I can do is keep fighting. Keep trying to save people. So he rushes towards the most dangerous area here. And when he does, Steve's just thinking to himself, like, I'm so tired. Tired of people in power. People vying for power. Allowing this. Placing these people as numbers on a spreadsheet. Because really, Ross doesn't care how many casualties stack up out here. Which over the past few years has just shown how Ross has went from becoming this devoted patriot who was tamed to a degree, where after he had his rank as general stripped away, he was still carrying out these secret missions that were still very violent, but he would carry them out within the guidelines of what the US wanted him to do and where they wanted him to be, which at times called for some hulked out smashing, but it also included him just taking people out the old-fashioned way. And at the time, Ross followed orders, and he did what he was told. But like we saw, something changed back when Ross was just carrying out the service that the United States would give him. And that something changed when he was captured by Doom, because before One World Under Doom even started, Doom had it all planned out. With him becoming Sorcerer Supreme and eventually running the world his way, Doom captured Ross and kept him on a low gamma diet in order to lock him away and extract Ross's strategic thinking, so Doom could use it during One World Under Doom. So when Thunderbolt Ross eventually broke out and he found out that the whole world had just bent the knee to Doom and said okay, he made it his mission to claim Latveria for the US, partially to get back at Doom, who was gone at this point, but also this was him saying, I'm not going to let something like One World Under Doom happen again. So if anyone takes Latveria, it's going to be the US, before anyone else runs up in here and rises to power. And he was ready for whatever conflict that would have brought. So following this and the events of Dungeons of Doom, as well as the rise and fall of Salvation, where Salvation was close to becoming the next Doom replacement. But even with Salvation being the front runner in the war for Latveria, the US wouldn't allow Ross to get involved. So of course when Ross wasn't allowed to step in and he had to let Steve continue with his mission, which at the time was more about finding weapons and disarming Latveria from being a global threat, Ross told the Secretary of State that they need to take it. And of course at this time, Ross already had his plan of how to do that, which we would later see as his team of Hulks. But when Secretary Brooke denied the General's request, General Ross went through with creating his team of Hulks anyway, because much like how he planted the US flag in Latveria without anyone's permission, he's also taking it upon himself to bring that team of Hulks to Latveria and decide its future. And with each event, Ross has moved further away from doing what his country asked him to do to just doing what he believed needed to be done. So when you take all of this and you add to it him finding this hidden clone of Victor Von Doom, at this point Ross isn't listening to anyone, and even though his heart is still truly with America, he truly believes that he has to handle this his way. And to Ross, whoever's taken out in the process is just a casualty to war. And at its core, a lot of these things are your primary ingredients to a Red Hulk villain arc. But in the here and now, Steve is out here just trying to save who he can. He sees a small kid getting ready to be crushed by a castle turret that the general just broke and he just don't care about. Like, he don't care where it lands or who it lands on. So as Steve goes to save the kid, he continues. Because like he was saying how he's tired of people in power and people vying for power, allowing things like this, placing these people as numbers on a spreadsheet, and calling their deaths acceptable. No more. As long as I breathe, I say no more. I'm sorry, Sharon. And he just dives on top of the kid to protect him from the impact. And sometime later, when we see the backup from the UN that Nick Fury called in, helping people out and removing debris because they hear someone underneath, we find Joe Ramos making his way over to help, and he quickly sees here that the kid's okay. But then he notices that this kid's being covered by Cap's shield, and when he finds Steve up underneath, it's not looking good. But also at this time, when we head back over to General Ross and his team of Hulks, we see that they've managed to track down the machine that young Victor Von Doom was carrying, the one he dropped and left behind. And they had a lock on its energy signature before, which is how they were able to find it. And now with Ross having the machine and not having to worry about Nick Fury's shield team, Elena Von Doom is gone, Salvation's gone, pretty much everyone's out of his way. This is a huge win for him going into Avengers Armageddon. But there's more, because when we go back to Steve, we find him waking up in his birthday suit. But now he's not in Latveria. But as he wakes up, he hears a voice from behind him say, "Ah, Steven Rogers, Latveria's champion. And now, Doom's. Welcome to hell." Which is crazy, and not only because Cap has just found the real Doom, but Doom also wants Cap to team up with him so they can take on Mephisto. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. All right, later.